everybody, it's Rebecca here at Wine Mermaids, joined by my special guest, Sora, the cat, who apparently doesn't want to be here, so say bye to Sora. I'm here today for my September wrap-up. Is it already October? That's nuts. That's crazy. Wow. I read a total of 8 things in the month of September, and I had an average rating of 3.69, which is pretty good. There was a 3.5. There's some 3s. The lowest was a 2.5 and the highest was a 5. Woo! 5s have been really rare this year, so it's exciting when I finally read one. But as per usual, we're gonna start with the lowest and work our way up, because that's just the way we do things over here today and whatever in life. We like to end on positive notes. Anyway, let's start with the 2.5. My 2.5 this month was Looking for Alibrandi by Melina Marchetta. This is a Australian contemporary story of this girl who comes from an Italian background in Australia, so she's kind of seen as a minority, as an underdog, and she doesn't really know where she fits in because she was born in Australia to Italian heritage. So she doesn't really know where she fits in, so it's kind of her trying to figure that out. I've read Finnegan of the Rock earlier this year, which was my first foray into Melina Marchetta, but my good friend Caitlin over at Book Chats, Melina is her favorite author and she loves all of her contemporaries as well, and so I wanted to give them a shot, and so I started with the very first one that she'd ever written, which was Looking for Alibrandi, and you can tell that it's her first book, and I think that really kind of was what brought it down for me in the rating. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of contemporary, and this one, it was written in the 90s, and so a lot of the things that are really commonplace now were not so commonplace then. So if I'd read this in the 90s as a teenager, I probably would have rated it a lot higher because of some of the things that it deals with were very, very pushing the limits of its time, but now to read them, it just feels like they weren't touched on enough because it's been a long time since it was written. So you can tell the disparity between the time in that, and I think that really is what kind of brought it down a lot. Also, it's her first book. She hadn't really got onto her style yet. But overall, I did enjoy it. I liked the characters. I liked that it was very realistic, but I just didn't really connect to it as much as I probably would have had I been a teenager when I read it. So I gave it a 2.5. Next up, I have 2 3-star reads. The first one is Forget Tomorrow by Pintip Dunn. I did receive this book from the LovingDemBooks BookTube Tours, and there's a giveaway that goes along with it. I have all that information down in the description below, and so I already did a full review of this book if you're interested in hearing all of my thoughts about it. I kind of wavered between a 3 and a 4 on my rating for this one because I did, when I read it, really enjoyed it, but when I thought about it more, there were some pretty obvious problems that I kind of just surpassed and didn't pay attention to when I was reading it. But this is a YA dystopian where in this world you receive a memory from a future version of yourself that pretty much predetermines the rest of your life. And our main character finds out that she's a criminal and she has to fight this fate that she kind of determined for herself. So it's an interesting concept. I really loved the themes behind it and the whole ideas behind it, but some of the execution wasn't quite there. I did receive Remember Yesterday, which is the second book, which just came out on the 4th, and I am curious to see how that one goes on from where this one leaves off. So I know it's from a different character's perspective and it's forward in time, so I'm really curious about that. So I did really like it. I do want to continue the series. I'm hoping that it kind of picks up on some of those themes, but again, I have a full review over already on my channel that you can check out. My other 3-star read is Popular by Maya van Wagenen. This is a memoir of a girl, I think she was in the 8th grade when she went through this experience in her life and decided to write the book about it. And the idea is that this girl Maya, she is kind of not really that popular in her school. She's kind of towards the bottom and she wants to figure out what is popularity and what does it mean. She discovers this book that was written in the 50s about how to be popular, and so she and her parents have the idea of what if she were to follow this book's advice now in 2016, or it was 2012 or something at the time. So what if she were to follow that advice now? And so she does, and it's the course of this year. Each month she focuses on a different chapter or 2 and applies that to her regular life, and I think it's really cool. I read it. I was teaching memoir to my creative writing students, and I wanted to read something that was slightly more their age range because I read a lot of memoir, but a lot of them's a lot older people and the themes are really dark, and this one was kind of fun and fluffy. Also, I saw Maya speak at a panel last year at YALLFest and I was really impressed by her, so I wanted to check out her book, and so I did, and it was pretty good for being written by an 8th grader at the time, and so I did give it a 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't love it, but I thought it was impressive, so I thought some of the things she could have done, she could have carried out in a different way to make it better, but it was good. It was enjoyable, and I think that teenagers would definitely relate to it a lot more than I did, and I'm almost 30. I have 4 4-star reads this month. The first one is the first book that I finished, and that's Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde, and this is the first one in a series. However, it's the only one out right now, and this was published quite some time ago, so I don't know if another one's coming or not. It would be great if another one did, because I'd love to see where this goes on, what happens next. This book is a futuristic dystopian society, which we all know that I love so much. Everybody sees like different colors, like you don't see all the colors. You might only see one shade of color, one hue. The hierarchy of the world is dependent and ranked by what colors you can see and how much you can see. Everything is controlled by this government and by these rules, and none of it really makes sense, and I really want the other books to come out so that I can find out where these rules came from, where this society came from. But it's kind of slow in the beginning, but then it kind of picks up and you start to, some of the secrets get unraveled as you get further on, and it's really interesting. Just a really cool concept, a really cool book. It reminds me of The Giver in a lot of ways, with sameness and the whole like society, your whole goal in life is to like marry up so that your color gets higher and higher and higher, and your like offspring gets to see more red than the others and stuff like that. Glad I read it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I really hope the next book comes out soon, but it probably won't. The next book is Violent Ends. I also give this one a 4-star rating, and this has a variety of authors. It's like a whole bunch of different ones, like 14 or 15 of them. I don't know them all, so I'm not going to tell you, but I'll list them down in the description below so that you can see who contributed to this book. The concept of Violent Ends is a school shooting that takes place, and this book gives different perspectives on that school shooting, and each chapter is told from a different author and a different character's point of view, and kind of how it affects the school shooting affects them, or how they affected it. And so you never really find out why it happened, and you never get the killer's perspective, which I get that it's a point for doing it, but it made me really like, I want to know why and everything, because you see all sides of this character. You see the goods, you see the bads, you see possibly why, but then you don't at the same time, and it's very much like a real, if it were to really happen, because you don't know why. Even, parents and best friends don't know why, and that's kind of the idea behind it. And I thought that was really powerful. I thought that it was really interesting. There's different perspectives. There's a perspective from the gun that he uses. You get that as a character. You also get like a teacher that completely, you don't even realize that's the teacher, and I think that's awesome until the end of the chapter. And it's really cool as a teacher. I definitely was able to kind of relate to it in a lot of ways and see it, and I just find those kind of stories really intriguing, and I thought this was really well written, and so I did give it 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a good read, and I would recommend it if you are interested in that kind of thing. There obviously are trigger warnings, but I think it's really powerful, and you can see how it would affect, because it's the before, the during, and the after. You get chapters from all of those things, all of those times, and how it has affected all of these different people, and I think that's really powerful. It was a really good read. I listened to 2 audiobooks this month, both of which were 4-star reads. The first one was Wildflower by Drew Barrymore, and I love Drew Barrymore because I just think she's really funny and very realistic and down to earth, and so I enjoyed listening to her memoir. She read it. It's just kind of a fun thing, and especially since she's an actor, or an actress, she gets really into it when she reads it. Like, she yells, she screams, she like laughs, and it's just, it brings out her personality. If you're gonna read it, I definitely recommend listening to it, because she does a great job reading it. I mean, she wrote it, it's her life. She tells a good story. Part of it is very, it's a celebrity memoir, so you kind of know what you're getting into with it. It's not like the best written thing in the world, but it's fun, and I liked kind of getting behind the scenes of Drew's life a little bit more, just because I feel like she has a very interesting life, and this definitely confirmed that for me. So it was a good read, I enjoyed it, and it was fun. My other audiobook was Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. Again, I gave this one a 4-star read. These are my 4 4s. This book is really great. It talks about being creative and going beyond fear to become creative and have a more creative life. That idea really resonated with me as a creative person. I definitely experienced a lot of the things she's talked about. I loved this idea of big magic, where you can't control the creativity and you can't control the forces that come to you and the ideas that come to you, and how sometimes they just come to you and then leave, and sometimes they come to you and keep coming and coming and coming and trying to get you to use them. And I just really liked this idea of her perspective on creativity and the anecdotes that went along with it. It's like a memoir, but not a memoir at the same time. And I've never read anything by Elizabeth Gilbert before. I've been intending to maybe pick up Eat, Pray, Love, and I also have the signature of all things hanging out on my bookshelf for me to pick up at some point, but I haven't read anything by her yet. But I kind of wanted to after listening to her book because it inspired me. I only gave it 4 just because part of it was a little heavy-handed for me, and also because as a narrator, I don't know if she was really the greatest narrator. She kind of just seemed kind of nah, 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 and I needed some more energy. I felt like I was lacking energy when I listened to it, but I enjoyed it enough that I liked it, that I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And I have recommended it to people who kind of have that fear about putting themselves out there. So if that's you, I recommend this book to you as well. Maybe read it, maybe don't do the audiobook, but maybe not. Maybe you might like her soothing tones, which are also nice. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. My 5-star read. I'm so excited. I read Codename Verity by Elizabeth Flynn. I had not read this one before. I've seen multiple people talk about it, but the cover never really appealed to me that much. I was like, really? What is this book that all these people are loving? And then I needed a book to read. I was kind of like, oh, I don't know what to read next. And then I was going through my Kindle and I was like, oh yeah, I have this book. I should probably read it because people love it. I want to see what the fuss is about. So I started reading it knowing not a single thing about it, and oh my gosh, I loved it. I also saw, at that same panel that I saw Maya Van Wagenen speak in at YALLFest last year, I also saw Elizabeth Wine, and was talking about strong female characters and kind of how that term isn't really a good term, but also about those type of characters. And anyway, and so I was like, all right, I want to read this book, so I tried it out. I loved it. So Codename Verity is, I don't want to give too much away, but it's a World War II story about a female pilot and her friendship with a wireless operator. And it's really awesome. There's twists in there, there's all sorts of things going on, and it's a beautiful story. And I love that it's got female characters at the helm as pilots and as strong characters in World War II. You don't really hear a lot about those kind of characters, and so I really, really, really enjoyed it. And then I went and picked up the sequel, the companion book to it, and I also bought that one because I really wanted to own it. So those are coming in the next haul. Look out for those. If you haven't read Codename Verity yet, it starts off a little slow, but man, it's worth it. It's worth it, 100%. It's worth it. 5 stars, hands down. Well, those are all the books that I read in September. Not a bad month. Not a bad month at all. So let me know what you read in September, what your favorite book that you read was, and if you've read any of these you want to chat about, then let me know. And I guess that's it for me today. I'll see you next time.